Okay, Dawn, thanks for taking the time to speak with us and inform the voters about your positions on some issues for us today. Let's start with why you were running for California State Assembly.
Yeah, that's probably the best question to start with, Scott. But, I think of myself as a mom first, a special education teacher second, and a public servant third. And so, really the biggest reason that I'm running for this assembly seat is to support our community, to give back to our community, to be a good voice for our community in the state legislature, and to make sure that students and families, children, and all the folks that live across this district get good representation and have their voices heard at the assembly level.
You may have touched on it a bit in your first answer, but I'll ask you, how has your life experience to this point prepared you to represent these three counties here, San Luis Obispo, Monterey, and Santa Cruz counties in Sacramento?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I'm on the Morro Bay City Council. It's a coastal city, and this district has 4 hours of coastline. So I'm very familiar with coastal issues, whether coastal issues connected to climate or coastal issues connected to housing and trying to get projects done in the coastal zone, working with different agencies. That is very much in my bailiwick as a coastal resident of 20 years, as well as on the city council. But I've also been in SLO County for a very long time and raised our children here and been a teacher in the local school district here. So, as you and I were talking before, this district is sort of shaped like the Big Dipper. So it's got 4 hours of coastline, but then it's also got about 3,600 square miles of San Luis Obispo County. So I really understand the culture, the needs, the business challenges, the housing challenges of San Luis Obispo County as well.
Democrats certainly have a stronghold in state politics. Is it your hope and expectation to be willing and able to work with people across the political aisle?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked that question, Scott, because that's exactly what I've done on the Morro Bay City Council, where we have a mixed council. It's a local level, nonpartisan in terms of folks that are on the ballot and how they're designated, but oftentimes does affect people's perspective. And we've been very effective. I feel I've been very effective working across the aisle on major infrastructure projects, on housing initiatives, and things, working to support local businesses, providing support and aid during the COVID crisis. All of those things couldn't have happened if I wasn't working across the aisle. So, even with the Democratic majority, it's important to me to represent everybody in this district.
You list education as a top priority, and so does your opponent, but it appears you have different views on how to improve it. What do you think is the best way to improve outcomes for our students?
Well, we need to make sure we're getting dollars to classrooms, dollars to students in a way that's really going to affect students' lives. So, we want to make sure we're maintaining those lower class sizes that have come in more recently. We want to make sure that we really are meeting our mandates around funding public education. We want to make sure that we cut wasteful spending. And I come from special education background. I taught special education for 13 years. So there's a lot that needs to be done in that area as well to make sure that students and families are getting the services they need, but that we're not doing it with wasteful spending.
California is a very expensive place to live, certainly. How do you think the state can help reduce the burden of the high cost of living here?
Well, and the Central Coast is expensive enough, right? It's one of the most expensive places in the entire state. So, certainly housing is a huge piece of that, and making sure that we are supplying enough housing that we can support new families, that we can support young families to get into those starter homes that feel like they're a thing of the past. But we all know the next generation needs places to live, and that's one of the biggest expenses here on the Central Coast. So I think there's a role for the state in that.
California has put a lot of money towards homelessness, but it remains a top issue, certainly, with more to be done. What do you think can be improved on as far as how the state responds to the homelessness crisis?
Well, I'm very optimistic about the new care courts. I think we're going to need to make sure that those are well resourced, that they're well staffed, so that we can support people who need to be off the streets and need more mental health care. We need much more funding and resources in our mental health care system. That has been very much highlighted over the past few years. And see where we can go next in terms of resourcing the care courts. Those are two of the things.
What type of energy policies do you support?
We energy is one of the most important things, and I'm really glad you brought that question up because it's one of the most important things in this district. We are kind of on the cusp of where we need to go with climate and with attacking the climate crisis. So in my opinion, it's an all hands on deck kind of approach when it comes to energy. We know that, we've got this 5-year timeline around Diablo right now that's been very important to San Luis Obispo as well as the state of California. And as we go through that transition, we need to be accelerating what we do in other areas of energy.
What makes you a better choice for a state assembly than your opponent?
I think I have more experience. I've been on the city council. I've served in government. Before that was the appointee to the Citizens Finance Advisory Committee. I've been in public education and I understand what it takes to serve families here in the public education system. As I mentioned, I govern in a coastal city and 20% of this district has 20% about of the California coastline. So I bring the experience, but I also bring the ability to get along with a lot of different groups of people. As you asked at the beginning, would I be willing to work across lines? And that's the experience that I bring, especially from having worked in the schools. When you work in a public school system, you don't choose who you're going to serve. You serve every child and every family. And so that's the perspective that I bring to the state assembly.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for you. Is there anything else that you'd like voters to know?
Well, I'm here, I'm available, I'm happy to listen to concerns. People are welcome to reach out to me. I'm sure you'll post our website and our email, and I welcome that communication and I welcome those questions.
Okay, Dawn, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thanks so much, Scott. It's good to see you again.